Hey there, we have like eons of stories to tell, so if you want to follow us along on this journey and keep up with all the stories that we have putting out, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Hey, what is up everybody? Chad is here, and today we're going back into the Superior Spider-Man. Or actually I should say we're starting Superior Spider-Man sort of, because the last two issues, like while they're like directly leading into Superior Spider-Man, they weren't actually Superior Spider-Man. It was the Amazing Spider-Man, and it was like the last two or three issues before it starts, right? This right here is like the actual official start of the Superior Spider-Man, right? So where we last left off, right, like Spider-Man and Dr. Octavius had switched bodies, and they were like in their final battle, right? And eventually Dr. Octavius, like carrying the mind and consciousness of Peter Parker, he died. So Peter Parker, in all standards of the word, is dead at this moment, right? Like he's no longer living, he's not here anymore. It is just Otto Octavius as Spider-Man and Peter Parker at this point, right? And that's what he's doing. Like he's standing over the grave of Otto Octavius, and he's like lamenting on his life, right? He's just like, okay, yeah, like this used to be my life. I used to do all this different villainry. You know, I get a second chance at life because of, you know, how smart I was and outsmarting Peter Parker. So let me just do this the right way, right? So what he does is, like, while he's doing that, he gets like this call, and you know, there's basically like this break-in at Empire State University, and he has to go as Spider-Man and stop it, right? So he goes, and basically we find out there's this new Sinister Six out there, right? Because normally it's Otto Octavius who's the leader of it, right? But now there's this new Sinister Six, and he's like taking offense to it, right? It has like Shocker, Speed Demon, Overdrive, the Living Brain, Boomerang, just a bunch of D-listers, right? Like the most boring villains out there, right? Like they just came together and they're just trying to do some stuff, right? Call themselves the new Sinister Six. So while they're out there, you know, they're trying to, you know, get their stuff together. They're trying to go and get this item that they're looking for to basically like work on this machine. And eventually Spider-Man shows up, right? And he's like talking to all of them, and they're just trying to fight him off, right? And they're not really holding on too well in terms of fighting off Spider-Man, because, you know, he's able to like take them out, you know, like sort of quickly, until Speed Demon shows up, right? So Speed Demon, he's fast, okay? Just think of him as Flash. And basically the problem that Spider-Man has with Speed Demon is the fact that he moves so stupidly fast that even if Spider-Man's spider sense goes off, he doesn't have enough time to move because of how fast Speed Demon is, right? So Spider-Man, he gets frustrated, right? This is the difference between Otto Octavius and Peter Parker, right? So Spider-Man, he gets frustrated and he just leaves, right? Like he just leaves. He doesn't try to fight them off. That's what Peter Parker would have done. He would have just stayed there, found a way to outsmart them, and he would have just, you know, took them out that kind of way, right? He just Otto Octavius, he just leaves, right? Like he's like, I'm done here, and he goes, right? Like he's done with it, right? He's tired of getting pummeled, and eventually Boomerang, you know, he doesn't want Spider-Man to leave, so he throws this boomerang. And eventually the boomerang it starts chasing this police officer, right? And the Spider-Man, knowing that he has to go and save this guy, he jumps down and save him, right? Now Otto Octavius, he doesn't, you know, does this consciously, right? Like it's somewhat sort of muscle memory that Spider-Man has, you know, like saving people all the time, you know, stuff like that. There's more to this, but we'll find that out later. It's somewhat sort of like a muscle memory kind of thing. So he goes down there and he saves him, and he's shocked that he did this, by the way. Like he's like completely shocked that he went and saved this dude, right? So when he does that, you know, like he's like, you know, kind of hurt, Boomerang, he shows up and he like starts choking him out with one of his boomerangs, right? So Spider-Man, he shows this new little this new little piece of technology he has in his suit, right? Like he shows his fingers, and basically there's these little tiny claws that he has in him, right? And he goes and he slices Boomerang, and they just run, right? Because they didn't expect this kind of thing from Spider-Man, right? Like from Peter Parker, they didn't expect this kind of thing, right? For him to be, you know, somewhat sort of lethal in terms of, you know, like drawing blood from people using, like, you know, like claws and, you know, stuff like that. So, like, the Living Brain had been taken out during the battle, and he was like asking police officers if he could keep it, right? You know, he wants to go and keep the Living Brain and find out if he could find a way to defeat the new Sinister Six using the Living Brain, right? So he's like working on it, and basically like all his friends are trying to come up to him, right? Like Grady and like all these different people, they're just like talking to him, you know, Max Modell, and he's just like shutting all of them off, right? Like he wants to go off on his own, you know, like work on it himself, right? So Max Modell, he shows up to Peter Parker, and what he realizes is Peter Parker's building a bunch of weapons, right? Like he doesn't, that's not necessarily what his company, like his what he made his laboratory for, right? Like Horizon Labs, it's not necessarily what he wants to, you know, like have it be known for, right? Weapons and stuff, right? So when Peter Parker shows him all of the quote-unquote peaceful equipment and technology that he's been working on, Max Modell's just like, okay, yeah, just go ahead and do your thing, whatever. You're smart, you got this, you know, just like that, right? Just like dismissing all of it, right? So from there, he's like frustrated, right? Because when he realizes realizes is everything that happens, gets attributed to Peter Parker, right? Not Otto Octavius, right? So if someone, if he were to make like this groundbreaking discovery, right? Like if he were to make this crazy piece of technology, like time travel, well, not time travel, they had that in the Marvel universe. Well, Doctor Doom had it in the Marvel universe, like time travel or something like that. It would just go to the name of Peter Parker, right? That would be left with his legacy. But what he realizes is he is Peter Parker. Like at this point, he is Peter Parker. All of the wins that Peter Parker gets, they go to him now, because he's like, Peter Parker's no longer part of the picture. Like he's gone. Like he's dead. Like he's out of the way completely. So while he's freaking out about that, he actually gets called by Mary Jane, and basically what Mary Jane, she's like asking him like, are we still on for tonight, stuff like that, saying that they're going on a date, and it seems like they're gonna actually get back together, stuff like that, because like when they're out, they're basically at this date, and alright guys, don't be like Otto right here, right? So basically like while he's there, she's talking, and like he's like talking about all this like Peter Parker's different life, stuff like that, and the entire time he's just staring at her chest, right? Like he is not actually into this at all. Like he is just sitting there just like, okay, yep, I can get used to this, that kind of stuff, right? So what he actually ends up telling her is, like, she's like talking, she's like asking him like what's going on, stuff like that. What he's saying is he's wearing this headpiece, and basically what this headpiece is it's connected to the living brain, right? And it's basically telling him like he's listening in on all of their plans, so he knows exactly what they're gonna do before they even think about doing it, stuff like that. So like she starts asking him like why aren't you going after them, because like Peter Parker, after he found out that they were planning something, he would have just took off immediately, right? But Otto, he's just sitting there, he's just like sitting there, he's chilling, like trying to get a drink, stuff like that. And MJ, she's getting worried. But what Peter Parker says is, he has this advantage at this point, right? Like he knows what they're gonna do, he knows how to counteract it. He's like got all these different things like set in motion to keep them from doing what they gotta do, right? So what happens is, like when they're going in and they're starting their mission, basically they go in and they come out, right? It doesn't take them long at all. They go in like 10 seconds, because Speed Demon is as fast as he is. They're able to do stuff like super quick. So they go in and they come out, and Spider-Man, he's just there, right? Like he has all this webbing set up and basically all this different stuff set in place to basically keep them from doing what they gotta do, right? So Speed Demon, knowing that he can get to Peter Parker really quick, he goes in and tries to run, right? And what we find out is, so what he did is he went and he applied like this instant frictionless substance to the flooring, right? So basically like keep him from running, right? Because like if he can't run, if he doesn't have any friction, like any traction, he's not gonna be able to go anywhere, right? Because his feet are just gonna slide every time. So that keeps Speed Demon out of the way. Like he can't do anything at this point. Like he is stuck at this moment, right? So that gets one of them out of the way, and what he does is like he just starts taking all of them out, right? Like telling them about all these different things that he's been doing and working on to basically keep them from doing what they gotta do, right? He also goes and he like shows them that they have like this power dampening field, right? Like there's basically like this little light bulb, and it basically just turns off the powers of a lot of people there, right? To keep all of them out of the fight, right? So when he goes in and he just starts taking them out one by one, literally just taking like all of them out. Like this is the tactical advantage that he was talking about when he said he was using it with his headset when he was on a date, right? Eventually, like he gets up to Boomerang, and basically he's like just beating into Boomerang, right? Like he is like literally destroying Boomerang. And when it like gets close to the point where he's actually gonna kill this guy, he stops, right? Like he stops, and it's like this ghostly hand just like stopping him, right? And basically what we find out is it's Peter Parker. Like the memory of Peter Parker still resides in his body, right? Like he's still there. He is not dead at all. He's just like hidden away in the mind of Peter Parker, because Otto, he doesn't know that he's there, right? Like all he knows is that he has stopped his hand before he killed Boomerang, right? So with that happening, like he takes out the Sinister Six, and basically, like he's like going on his normal, day-to-day thing, and like on his second day he ends up like saving some people, and basically the press is there, right? They're just like taking pictures and recording, and, doing all this different stuff for Peter Parker, right? And basically J. Jonah Jameson shows up, right? And pretty much it looks like he's just like throwing all the bad stuff that him and Spider-Man have between each other behind him, right? And like the ghost speed, the consciousness of Peter Parker, he's just like mad because like J. Jonah Jameson could have did this when he was alive, right? And like as soon as Otto takes his body, he wants to turn over a new leaf, stuff like that. And it looks like Otto as Spider-Man is doing better than Peter Parker was, right? Because like all this different stuff, like he's more tactical in terms of how he's like planning stuff. Like people like him more. It's like somehow, I don't know how, but yeah. Like he's like getting back together with Mary Jane, like there's all this different stuff that's like like turning upside down for Peter Parker's life in a good way. So what we find out is like he's at after that all that stuff's going on, basically he's going on this date with MJ again, right? He's going on this date with MJ again. You know, he shows up, and the whole time, like, he's like listening to the consciousness of Peter Parker. He just doesn't know it. You know, it's just like talking in his head. You know, and basically, you know, like when they're on their date, this fire truck speeds by, right? Like, it speeds by, and you know, like Mary Jane's like, okay, yeah, you gotta go get there, right? It's a fire truck. You know, you gotta go do your Spider-Man things, right? Go save some people. And basically, what this Peter Parker says is, you know, I don't have to do that. You know, stuff like that. He's basically like dismissing it, right? Like, even though it's a fire truck and people are in danger, he's dismissing it, right? And we find out, we go like cut back for a little bit, we basically find out that what he done is, there's these little if you remember the Octobots, you know, like the little tiny robots that he had made, basically, like, he transformed those into spider bots, right? And he basically made a bunch of them, and he has them like sitting around the city, right? Like, he has them sitting around the city, you know, they're just like watching the entire city, right? So if there's something that he absolutely needs to be at, he can get there. And if there's something that, you know, like, it's like some, you know, if a fire, or, you know, something that any other emergency contact could do, like police officers, you know, like a small mugging, like anything like that, he could just get them on that, right? Like, he doesn't have to go as Spider-Man, right? It saves him a bunch of time. He can still be Spider-Man, and he can go be where he needs to be in terms of, you know, like serious threats, right? So we're just watching him on all these different dates, right? And there's a problem that he's running into every time that every time that he gets to it on a date with MJ, right? You know, they have a good time, you know, they go out, and they're like, when he's like dropping her off at home, right? Like, she'll give him like a little kiss, and she's like, good night, and she leaves, right? And he's like getting discouraged, right? Because, like, you know, it sucks to have to get, you know, shut down like that, like at the doorsteps. Like, it's kind of tough. And like, every time that happens over and over and over again, every single time, and it's just frustrating him, right? So when they're like on this date, right, they go on another date, you know, they had been on like 4 or 5 before this. He's just like sitting there, right? Like, he's trying to figure out what's going on, right? He has like the perfect settings, you know, there's all these different factors that he's taking into account, but it never works, right? Like, he'll get like a kiss, and he'll get shut down at the end of the night, right? And he's trying to figure out why that keeps happening, right? So while he's doing that, there's basically like these 3 figures, like, who are trying to like invade the club of MJ, right? Like, basically they have something in there that they need, and they're trying to go in there and get it, right? Eventually his his spider sense goes off, right? So Spider-Man's spider sense goes off, and what he realizes is there's something coming, right? But Otto Spider-Man, he gets like a different approach, right? Like, he's like, okay, yeah, that's exactly what I need. I need Spider-Man, right? Like, she loves me as Peter Parker, but she also loves Spider-Man. So let me go and, you know, do some Spider-Man stuff with her, right? So he goes, he like changes into a Spider-Man costume, and he takes her and he flies off, right? And they just go swinging through the city, right? So eventually they get back to her home, right? Like, they get back to her window, and basically he lets her in. And eventually, like, as soon as they let her in, the lights come on, right? And Carly Cooper, Peter's other ex-girlfriend, is there, right? They have some stuff to go over, you know, they have to work on some stuff. And eventually Spider-Man, he gets shut down once more, right? It's like an endless cycle. Like, every time that he tries to go in and, like, you know, like, get with MJ, like, get with her, he gets shut down every single time, and he doesn't know how to, you know, fix that situation, right? But what he realizes is it's kind of messed up. He has the memories of Peter Parker, right? So he can memorize like all, like, her entire body, like her shape, like all that different stuff, right? He's using that, I'm gonna just say, to his advantage, okay? Because he's using that to his advantage, right? So the next day, like, you know, like, he went home and did his thing, you know, stuff like that. You know, he goes out and he's like going around, you know, doing all that kind of stuff, right? And he's like, you know, he's not tripping over, you know, MJ anymore, right? Like, he had, you know, gotten over her, you know, stuff like that. And eventually he gets like this alert from one of his spider bots, right? And basically it's at MJ's, right? So these 3 figures, like these little tiny vultures, they basically went in and they're trying to like take MJ away, right? Because the nightclub that she had created is in the old warehouse of Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, right? So they're basically like, his tiny vultures are coming in here, and they're basically like trying to get her out the way and trying to steal something back, right? So Spider-Man, getting this like alert, he goes in and he rushes in there. Like, he's trying to get up in there as fast as he can, and he's trying to stop this, right? So he goes in and like, they're taking her away. Like, they come in there, they grab her, and they're just taking her out the window, and they're just gonna drop her right to her death, right? They're just gonna let her fall, and they're gonna let her die, right? But Spider-Man, he gets there at the last second, and when he's there, this is like the one of the pluses that Otto Octavius has at this moment, right? So he's there, and basically what happens is, if you remember Gwen Stacy's death, where Spider-Man was trying to save her, and like when she was falling, he like whipped her foot, right? And basically what happened was she broke her neck at that point, right? Well, it was not exactly clear what, like, how it happened, but it broke her neck, right? So what he's doing is he's trying to tell her, like, don't whip the foot, you know, don't whip the foot, right? You might break your neck, you know, stuff like that. So what he does is he tells him, make a web net. And so using his subconsciousness, Otto Octavius, he makes a web net, right? And it basically catches her, right? Keep her from dying, stuff like that. And eventually, Spider-Man, he gets down there, right? And he's like talking to her, right? Because she's trying to get all close, like kiss on him, stuff like that. And he's like dismissive of her. He's like, okay, no, we can't do this, right? Like every single time we get close together, it never works out. Like what he's saying is, it's basically time to move on, right? So she Mary Jane Watson, like she gets that, like she hears it, she's like, okay, man, I guess it's time to move on, stuff like that. But she goes home, she's with Carly Cooper, and basically Carly Cooper, she's like feeling weird about it, right? Because like Peter hasn't been acting himself, and basically she's realizing Otto Octavius might have been not lying when he said that he was Peter Parker, right? And like she starts thinking about that, right? Like she's feeling very uneasy about it, right? And what she's gonna do is go and try to see if that's actually the case, right? She's gonna go and find out if that actually happened, like in terms of them switching bodies, if that actually happened, right? So if you're new to the channel, subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and I will see y'all in the next one.